The San Jose Sharks travel over 5 hours cross continent and come up victorious in Montreal. We'll break down Kaapo Kahkonen's third career shutout, Matt Benning doing something good, and a lot more right now. Tell all your friends, jump in right now. This is Teal Town After Dark. Good evening, everyone. It is Tuesday, November 29th, 2022, and the San Jose Sharks get a very big bonjour into Canada with a 4-0 shutout of the Montreal Canadiens. And with that, we welcome you to Teal Town After Dark. This is your live interactive Sharks postgame. We do this after every game, so if you want to be part of the show, here's how you do it. Join the conversation and chat with us and fellow Sharks fans all over the world, in Sharks territory, of course, on the YouTube page or the app. Of course, follow us on the social, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, SoundCloud, Reddit, Discord, TikTok. Find everything at tealtownusa.com. If you want to support the pod, you can do it through a super chat or Venmo us at tealtownusa. And with that, good evening, everyone. Bonjour. All right, that's all the French you're getting. I'm under strict contract not to do that. Landy, the same with you. How you doing, buddy?
Bonjour. Bonne nuit. Good evening. How are you doing this evening, Eric?
I am. I guess you could say I'm on the borderline of being on Team Tank. I would love to see Connor Bedard in Teal. But damn, it feels good to have a win like this. I mean, and to go, like I said, the intro, to go cross continent into Montreal, and mind you, Montreal not exactly slayers of men's professional ice hockey at the moment. But I mean, to have a victory, this team needed a strong victory, and was not expecting it tonight, and especially with a shutout from Kaapo Kahkonen.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, some of the most inspired hockey I've seen out of this team this season. And, it was enjoyable to watch, frankly.
Yep.
I had felt the last few games that I had kind of been on the podcast, it was just like, okay, how do I slice a loss any other way, and how do I have a lack of vocabulary when it comes to us losing, and all of a sudden a win helps motivate you and helps reinvigorate you back into doing this. So again, good to see the win. I think I am sort of on Team Tank as well, but damn, a win sure feels good every once in a while.
Yeah, no, completely agree with that. And they've played fairly well in this, and they get their 7th victory of the year. They're now 7-13-4 on the campaign. And Tony Couture, I frequent viewer here. He's always saying so many great surprises tonight. Kahkonen gets his first shutout as a Shark, and Benning stars on defense. Much team chemistry on display tonight, and keeping shut out the tenacious Canadiens. Yeah, and they talk about Nick Suzuki. You talk about Cole Caulfield, really dominating forwards that have been highlighting their success right now, as they're at 23 points on the campaign. But it takes a full effort, and it takes a full team effort. Kind of going with that team chemistry going. You saw, like, what is it, not even 90 seconds in, the Long Beach native. Oh wait, does that mean that what's a drinking? All right, Matt Nieto picks up the rebound from Barabanov to get things going 1-0. But Montreal challenges it early on, and man, That was awfully close. What did you think of the call? Did you think he was did they were offside or what? Because it looked to me it looked like they did, but the situation room said no concrete evidence on it.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of key, right? It wasn't really confirmed, but there was just not overturned, right? And I think that they went with the call on the ice, and that being that, the goal was good and onside. I saw the camera angle that you saw as well to give you pause and to think that was offsides, because that was initially how I was going to rule that one as well. Um, but again, they either must have found another angle that we didn't see, or deemed it wasn't enough evidence, because you could kind of see a little bit of blue, depending on how you looked at it. So again, razor thin margin, could have gone either way, in my opinion, on that one. Um, but again, good to see the second effort for Matt Nieto there on the follow up with the shot. Um, and good to keep attacking the net, and something that we hadn't seen a lot of, right? I mean, we had been begging this team for second chances and to be parked out in front of the net and to, really start to play some inside hockey. And we saw that in that first period. And again, part of the reason why it was enjoyable to watch the game was because this team was funneling towards the net rather than having a lot of play be dictated to them. And especially in that first period. Second period, we'll get into. I think that there's still things that are concerning. But again, they came out like gangbusters in that first, and this team has always historically played well against Montreal in Montreal, and again, good to see the team have a little bit of life.
Yeah, and it helps that they had practically back-to-back power play chances. Granted, 0 for 2, and 0 for would be the theme of the night on the power play, as it seemed like it was one big power play on the night for both teams.
Yeah, but, you are not joking about that.
But they looked promising in there. They were out shooting Montreal early on, 7-1, and of course that does include with the power play, 2 power play chances. But then Montreal comes back. They eventually outshoot, the Sharks 8-7 after one period. Of course, it helps that the Sharks have 2 power plays they give up to Montreal, but again, this penalty kill, and I can't stress it enough. They were number 2 last year. They look even better this year. I want to say it's like 5 or 6 goals that they've allowed, and a lot of them have been, on extended power plays or 5-on-3s for that matter.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you're onto something there with the penalty kill. Looking stronger than it has, because I think at times last season you could start to see the cracks a little bit form in that unit, and especially after the midseason trades, with the lack of a Cogliano or etc. Add name here, that unit took a drop off, and so this season they've picked up right where they left off from last year. But have really heavily leaned on the likes of Matt Nieto and Nick Bonino to really keep that unit together and to really shuffle in the new set of forwards that now play on that PK. They've really become the leadership in the PK, and I think that leadership kind of just goes to speak where they're at on the PK in regards to their relative standing in the league. So I think that the team, when I talk about specialty teams in general, I think that this team has been above average. I mean, they're above 100% if you take both the penalty kill and the power play added up. So I think it's been a strong season for specialty teams. I wonder if we're still not seeing enough traffic in front of the net and enough decisiveness being, seen on the power play, because I still see a lot of deferring. I still see a lot of trying to make a tic-tac-toe move to get a puck past the goaltender, when sometimes, giving varied looks towards the goaltender is a better strategy, right? To kind of keep them on their toes. You get some coming in from the points, you get some, off of tip-ins, or you get the layers that Drew Remenda always likes to preach. Where you have the three-layered approach towards the net. So again, the team can sometimes be very one-dimensional, and I think it can get stagnant.
Right.
And I saw part of that being played out on the power play tonight. And that was one of my takeaways was, the penalty kill is giving this team life right now. They're really generating a lot of momentum from it. So that's the positive, but the negative aspect is their own power play is sometimes feels like it lacks decision. It feels like it lacks decisive action.
So basically, if you follow the Barracuda, I'm going to say this. So it'll be perfect for Ryan Merkley, who I swear to God, he just hangs onto that puck way too much. But I digress. Yeah, with the penalty kill, obviously, you hit it bang on target. It's been phenomenal. They give Montreal an 0 for 6 on the power play tonight. Sharks, I thought they had some good grooves, but they felt a little stagnant, a little bit tonight in Montreal. But they had some good chances, despite all of that. And you get into the second period, and then you have that one penalty where Dadonov gets called for interference, which I thought was a little shaky, where Chichek goes into Kahkonen as Montreal is scoring. That eliminates a goal, but there was that. And then the Sharks take a parade to the penalty box. Lindblom for slashing. VL, hey, good to see you back in the NHL. You go to the box. Hooking. Meyer for tripping. And then Jacob Megan at the end of the period, puck over glass. And again, that was basically the second period, where it seems like interruptions by penalties. I think the ref got in the way with the puck a number of times. I think I said that with Andrew Berkshire on SDPN. Just being like, it just seems like you could see this team wants to get moving, and then something gets in the way. And it just kind of clogged up the second period, where it just was like, bleh. Overall, I thought, the second period was a dud. Third period, the Sharks get that huge PK going. Let's talk.
Let's talk about Kaapo Kahkonen for a second, because I think again we'd bury the lead here, but you had that initial goal waved off, and you thought, okay, he's gonna continue this shutout that he had going. And really, tonight had the most battle I've seen out of him in maybe 3 or 4 starts. And Ian and I, when we were on last, had really questioned whether or not Kaapo Kahkonen would be the answer in goal, whether he really was, a long-term asset. And a performance like tonight, where not only did he do well statistically, but he also looked like a goaltender who was confident, looked like a goaltender who could make those lateral movements, whereas before we were kind of left wondering, like, okay, this guy kind of seems like, I guess I question whether or not the flexibility and the reaction time had kind of slipped from last season, right? But a performance like tonight, where you saw him battle in the net, you saw him push from goalpost to goalpost, you saw him tracking the puck really well. I mean, I think at one point he headered a puck off of his helmet and took the save, right? So that to me speaks volumes that there is still an elite goaltender in there somewhere.
Yeah, he has shown flashes of it in his time, especially at the end of the year last year, where it just seemed like he couldn't buy a win after he got traded, but he played a phenomenal effort. Sure enough, you get something like that again tonight, and it's nice. I mean, he really kept the Sharks in this game where when you're only up 1-0, 90 seconds in, up until like the 2.5 minute mark of the third period, you need to keep guys in the game. And with all the penalties that they had, like the Sharks had 5 penalties in the first 40 minutes of this game. It could have been a lot worse. And he stoned Cole Caulfield on that one timer. They had plenty of chances to get this game tied up, but Kakko said no, and kept this game going. And then after that 5-on-3, you get them to come back, and then Hertl gets a nice pass from LeBanc to get them 2-0. You get the insurance, Landy, and all of a sudden you're like, "Ooh, we finally a sigh of relief. You could breathe for a little bit." My goodness.
Yeah, but I mean, even when the Sharks had the lead, though, you still saw the compete level extremely high. And I think that for me, that's kind of the mark of a goaltender of is he a quality goaltender when he has a lead and when he has the advantage? Can he maintain that advantage? Can he maintain that momentum? Right? Because of Sharks goalies past, it seemed like that could falter.
Right.
You could have a guy that got a little too confident or forgot fundamentals when the team was up, X amount of goals, however many goals you want to go with. But there would almost be this sense of complacency that would set in the goaltending. And when you see a guy like Kaapo Kahkonen making acrobatic saves in the third period when he's got a 3-goal lead, or at the end there, a 4-goal lead, it's just it's just refreshing to see.
Yeah. And to see how this can literally change the confidence of your game, to have that, oh god, here we go again. There's that first goal in the first 5 minutes of each damn period. I mean, how many times have we saw it the last 2 seasons, whether it was, or hell, the last 2 seasons of Martin Jones, and then last year it hit curtailed. And again, earlier this year, I think we were at 12 or 13 times where they gave up a goal in the last minute. It's just demoralizing, not to use the word that David Quinn said about his team in day one of the season. But to have a goaltender come in and make those saves, they don't have to be flashy. They don't have to be like that one, like I mentioned, with Cole Caulfield getting stoned, on a one-timer. But just the key saves where it could just fall apart, where if you don't give you that oomph, it's just not going to work out. You have those plays, and then when you get up the ice after that 5-on-3, you come back and score to make it 2-0, and then what was it, like a minute 15 later, Couture gets a home run pass from Matt Benning. What? On a breakaway, Couture scores. I mean, one thing that we have noted here, thank you, AJ. Logan Couture has 9 goals in November of 2022, his most in a calendar year since December 2011, when he also had 9. His most by any month is 10. He's got 1 more to go, tomorrow in Toronto.
The wrist must be feeling better. That's all I have to say about that, because he clearly was fighting some kind of wrist injury at the beginning of the year. That shot had no power on it, and now I don't see necessarily a power increase from the shot, but I do see a more selective Couture. I think he has been very frugal with his shots, but been very precise with the accuracy. So, if you can't overpower him with a shot, your next best thing is to go for the accuracy game, right? And
Right.
and try to pick the spots at which you make a shot. And I think that Couture's shot selection this month has definitely been better, because I think at the beginning of the season it seemed like he was still trying to shoot as if he were a 25-year-old or a 27-year-old, right? Where he would try and power through a shot, whether it be glove side or whether it be blocker side, but he would try to be very quick about his shots to keep a goaltender kind of um, off of his game. But this season, it seems like he's just held the puck for maybe an extra second or an extra half second to try to make a fake first, and then put a more precise shot on net. So it's subtle, and you have to really kind of be watching him. But again, I'm seeing good things. And Burge was talking about it in the chat. The Sharks are 2 points out of a playoff spot, and we got 57 games to play. Look,
Oh boy, here we go.
all I'm going to say is you've got to cross 5 teams, if you include the spot that you need to get into the wild card, and you've played about 4 more games than on average the rest of your conference. It's not good odds, and I don't also think that the team has enough to compete with just within their division. So for this Sharks team to make it, it would be very reminiscent of old Sharks that did not have a shot, that would make the playoffs and kind of surprise us. I kind of feel it's kind of got that vibe where we should be happy we're here wherever we end up at.
Right.
Because quite frankly, the last 3 seasons of hockey that this team has played has been very uninspiring. And, you can't take playoff success for granted. I mean, because I think as a franchise, we had it good for a long time.
I mean, this is the first time, I think, realistically, that they've kind of had to be, really rebuilding. I mean, they had the first 2 years at Cap House where they were just awful. Then they retooled, made the playoffs, and then they missed the playoffs a couple of years. They retooled again, and then went on that long stretch of playoff runs, missed here and there like a couple of times, but then they went on a longer run where they got within 2 wins of the big shiny thing among multiple conference finals appearances. This year, it's like, okay, this was the reality check. You had to, the new era of hockey. We hear it all over the place. They needed it, and this was the time where they had to go through Patience-Ville, and they had to work out their kinks, and they had all these
and they
tough times.
still are.
Oh,
And they
yeah.
still are, right? And I think we should also say, look at the opponent, right? Look at who they're playing. Now, if they go into Toronto tomorrow and make a statement game against Toronto and put 2 really good efforts back to back, that goes a long way in giving this team some confidence that they could think about making a run. But again, I want everybody's level to be put into perspective, and just know that this has more of a vibe of 92-93 versus 2010, 2011, where playoffs were a guarantee. So again, I don't think it can be stated enough that the team is still in the courses of restructuring a whole organization, and that doesn't come in half an off season. It doesn't come through one full season, in my opinion. I mean, I think that, this has got to be a long game for Mike. I from the initial beginnings didn't seem like there was a cohesive plan. I'm starting to see maybe some shapes of things coming. But again, really, really early days to kind of reset expectations.
Yeah, and it's nice to see. I mean, yes, we can of course root for the playoffs. We can hope for everything, but let's also be honest. This is one win. Let's not get crazy here. Yes, I mean, and I see Birch says, sorry, I forgot to use sarcasm, but I mean, some people will look at that. Your eternal optimist will look at, hey, you're only 2 points out of a playoff spot. Yes, but like you said, you got to leapfrog Nashville, Vancouver, Calgary, St. Louis, and Minnesota just to get in there. So yeah, you have to up it. It's like this is where I think the Sharks would like to be at right now. They're not going to tell you they're all team tank. They're not going to tell you they're rebuilding. They would like to be fighting for a playoff position as you go into the holidays. It's nice. It's nice, and it's nice to see a strong victory like this come in, but this has to be consistent if you want to go further than where you're at.
And I would say that this is a good outcome if you have a team that's a collection of young players doing this for the first time, and now you're starting to make it competitive, right? But this is still a team that, and God bless the organization because they got to sell tickets, right? So they're gonna always put the most most optimistic spin on any kind of statement coming out of the team, which they should, right?
Right.
But I am concerned with the financial commitments and where they should be in regards to how much they're paying players, right? Because let's say if this was a plucky young team and this was a team that was, $10 million under the cap and a team that had mostly ELC contracts, I'd be like, oh, hell yeah. Like this is the foundation that we're talking about. This is playing meaningful hockey later and later. Like if I was a team like Ottawa, for instance, right? I mean, and Ottawa, I think, has pipe dreams of where they should be and where they're at now. But, if you had a semi non-Canadian fan base looking at that with an eye of cautious optimism or an eye for just a little bit more objectivity,
right?
And you're doing that with those core of players in the position that the Sharks are in. Again, I'd be more optimistic, but the players, the commitments, the ages of where some of these players are at dictates that this team should be playing at a higher level than it is now. And again, I don't know if it's the right mix of players to really do damage in some kind of playoff chase. I think at least one winger, and could use an extra center, in my opinion. Two impact players away from really making noise. And I don't see that coming anytime soon. I mean, Tommy Bortolo is turning some heads, but again, I don't know if you want to thrust a kid like that and a kid like William Eklund into the fray just to watch them, end up missing the playoffs by 3 points or 2 points. I mean, was that really, all that important to bring those guys up? So again, you're kind of stuck in this mushy middle. It's
right.
Really reminiscent of Minnesota from years past, where they weren't good enough to get that number one overall, but they just weren't good enough to make the playoffs,
Right. It's that middle of like, okay, what are we doing? Let's just switch out the second six set of lines for a different one and see how it works. Or maybe we tinker with moving one of our top 6 players over to another team. Like Birch, you're mentioning, can we flip Barabanov for a first rounder? I mean, it's possible, but I mean, no guarantees on that. I mean, that would probably be Doug Wilson's final fleecing if that were the case. To send Antti Suomela to Toronto, get Barabanov back, and then you'd flip him for a high draft pick. I mean, that's wishful thinking, but anything is possible. You were going to say something. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, and I was just gonna kind of piggyback off of that. I mean, this team, for where it's at right now, should be all options on the table. Now, Barabanov is in a unique position because he just signed a new contract, so I don't know where the loyalties are at with the organization and the player, and the changing of the GM and where he fits into the plans. But I think that this team needs to continue to stock the cupboards. They need to have a good succession plan for when these players eventually age out.
Right.
And like I was saying a little bit earlier, the parallels to Minnesota, I mean, if you really want to look at it, I mean, Logan Couture, similar to like Zach Parise's deal and where he was at the back half of his career. You look at Ryan Suter. I was going to say Gary Suter, but that's his uncle. Ryan and where his contract was on the blue line, and how Erik Karlsson's contract, you can draw parallels because they were both at one point the highest paid defenseman in the league. So again, the succession plan in Minnesota required a new GM, to really come in with a new eye for new talent, keeping some old talent like Marco Scandella, right? I think he kind of draws parallel to somebody like Hertl, where they re-up him and they build around him. But if I'm getting offers for a Timo Meier, let's say, and it's a first round pick and a blue chip prospect and something else, I'm definitely listening. If somebody's calling about James Reimer and saying, hey, we could possibly get you a second, or something of value, that is more than, say, a fourth, right? Because at that point I think it's just better to keep him. But you've got to be weighing all options, and you've got to be manning those phones and seeing what the marketplace is saying with your players. Now, the Sharks, it's with where they're at in the standings and how some of their players have played. This market isn't. I don't think it's very much a seller's market, right? I think we're still too early for a lot of value to be extracted, and for a lot of other teams, they just don't know if they're still going to be in the race. I mean, like you had said, Burgeon, I know you had said it with sarcasm, but the optimist, eternal optimist would say Sharks are 2 points out. So again, I don't think the team should get any delusions of grandeur and feel that they should keep this core together. I think all.
Nope. You still with me there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, you just cut out for a moment there for some weird reason.
But
my thing is that these next 3 months will decide the future of where this team is going. We haven't really heard that R word in the front office. You kind of need to know where you're at with Timo Meier. Yes, you could say $10 million qualifying, but you can get around that easily. Do you move him because you're going to be like, hey, we're not going to be ready yet in a few years? Do you move him to, I mean, teams would be lining up for him in, I'll say Toronto, for example, who are just, licking their chops at somebody of Timo Meier's, stature and playmaking abilities. They don't have the cap space to do it. They would have to really finagle things, plus give up a whole heaping lot. And I think it goes for any of them, to move. I know everybody was getting excited about Pierre LeBrun's comments, a couple weeks ago, and that just was spiraling like crazy. Again, you mentioned Mike Greer. What's he gonna do? We don't know. We haven't seen his track record. We haven't seen what we can see. So it's just gonna be, blow. It's gonna be a blow up, or it could be something that we wait till the last minute. I mean, yes, he's listening to everything, and he's even said, everybody's on the table except Hertl. And the way that these guys have been coming on. We were dogging on Timo Meier. We were dogging on Logan Couture.
Kaapo Kahkonen.
Kaapo Kahkonen. Is he going to be the one guy? I mean, Dana, I come back to your comment. And by the way, Hunt, it was great to see you the other night at the Shark Tank. Why isn't the thing? Okay, there you go. Roll the tape on Dana 1 month ago, ranting about people who call Couture washed. He's got 13 goals now. If I'm not mistaken, and judging by my math, he could be in for the team lead for that.
I mean, Timo Meier, that goalless streak that he had to open the season, and now he's on almost a point per game basis. I mean, Tomas Hertl, another guy, he's 25 games in now with 23 points. I mean, this team, the young players that need to step up are stepping up, and this team has a pathway to success.
Yep.
But it requires a lot of their young players to really now prove that it's their time to lead this team.
Right.
And for the prior 2 seasons, at least, I think we saw a Sharks team that didn't have enough of the young guys pulling forward, and enough of a supporting cast. I'm very concerned still, though, that the offense can be anemic at times, right? That this team is so 1 to 2 line dimensional that, a team can check off on those guys and really stymie the offensive output. One guy that I thought did a long way to improve that was Svechnikov at the beginning of the season. I thought he really shored up that bottom or the second 6, but he got scratched tonight in favor of Jeffrey VL, right? So he's not really been a stabilizing force in the last, say, week and a half, 2 weeks. It was interesting. I was reading something on San Jose Hockey Now. Shout out to Shang, who does a great job. He's saying there are too many things for this team, too many things the team has to do right in order for the team to win. Meaning all of the cylinders have to be hitting in the right direction for this team to have any kind of success.
Sure.
Is that probability of that happening night in, night out better than it was last season? I don't know. I haven't seen enough to say that they really have grown as a group to make the next step.
Yeah,
I mean
they've gotten better since the 0-5 start. Let's be honest here.
Mm-hmm.
They've gotten better, but I turn to my soundboard and say, is this team ready to be a playoff team? AJ, your thoughts?
Oh, hell no.
That's right. Oh, hell no, indeed. I mean, they're making strides. They're making strides. I know you couldn't hear that, but that was hilarious. But they're not there yet. They're not quite there yet. They're showing strides, but it has to be more consistent. For a game like this, which I think we were all excited and happy about, with Kahkonen getting 28 saves, Matt Nieto, his 5th of the season, 4 goals in the last 8 games,
LeBanc getting in on the scoring, Couture, Tomas Hertl,
Matt Benning. He had a huge block in that PK, in that 5-on-3 PK. It's just been really, you'd have all those effects going in, and I think that's what Shing was talking about. Let's get to some of the comments from the locker room. We'll start off with this from Timo Meyer. Has 11 goals in November of the season. This is the first month since October 2009. The Sharks have two Sharks with 9 goals each. That would go with Couture and Meyer. The last time they did that, it was Marlowe and Danny Heatley. I should tell you how long it's been.
That's a long time.
Yeah. All right. Let's.
I will say this though.
Go ahead.
And I think that we've been pretty good tonight on the balanced view of, is it too much to read into this win, or is it being too pessimistic? I think we've rode that line of being cautious about it. But I will say this: if the Sharks can somehow have 3 players be point per game players this season, that will go a long way in making this team a playoff team. Now, whether those 3 skaters, 2 of them are forwards and one of them is defenseman, or if it's 3 forwards or what have you, the odds of the players having individual success and not bringing success towards the team are pretty low. Meaning that if you get 3 to 4 players who have got 82 plus points in the season, I think that you can start to say the team has made some strides, right? And I think that that's what it will take for such a top heavy team to make any kind of statement run. It's going to take something crazy like that to happen.
Yeah, and again, let's not get crazy here. And as AJ's pointed out, the Sharks remain on pace to have less points at the end of this season than they had last.
Yeah.
It's not exactly the greatest thing. Let's get an update, though. Ian checking us out. Thank you very much, Ian. I think it was Agazino who got the goal for the CUDA. They're tied 1-1 with the Iowa Wild at Tech C Arena. So keep up the good work with the updates there with Ian. You can always follow us on the Twitter machine where we're updating the games as we are going. But let's get back to some of the comments in the locker room. Mark Edward Vlasic, I wish we had 82 games in Montreal. Breaking news, Vlasic wants to play for the Montreal Canadiens. You heard it here first.
I mean, I think,
I
mean, if he wasn't playing in San Jose, I think in all honesty, that's where he would be.
Right.
Either that or Ottawa, right? I think, Ottawa's close enough to Montreal that, it's not trivial, or it's trivial the amount of time it'd take to commute or whatever. But, I think he either wants to stay and finish his career as a Shark, or will play for his hometown team, and that will be it for him.
Yeah.
I think when the career is all done and he's hung up the skates and you look at the back of the hockey card, I think it'll be one of 2 things: either he played out his full career in Teal, or he went home for his last season and a half or 2 seasons, whatever it may be, back at home. So
no, we completely agree on that. Vlasic would continue on saying 6 kills, a 5-on-3. After the kill, we get a goal. Benning had a huge block, took their momentum. I think that's a lot of penalties to take against a skilled power play. And while it's skilled, it's struggled over the season so far. But yeah, again, like we were saying earlier, stick taps to the PK, the number 1 ranked PK, getting it done. And doing like you said, Landy, whatever it takes. It's those intricacies that Shane was talking about that you need to have to pull together a win. Vlasic continue on when asked why the Sharks are playing better on the road. Vlasic, I don't know. If we knew what it was, we'd bring it home.
The game is simplified to them. To be honest with you, and it's been the case. I mean, even in the Joe Thornton years, it was that case where the team, for whatever reason, plays a simpler game on away ice. They change better when they have the long change. They don't seem so hyper focused on making the prettiest plays. And I think that there's an element of being stage fright in front of your own fans or whatever. And I think at some point, I think that they can feel the frustration of the fan base and know that this fan base is ready for playoffs again and ready to, go chase down a cup. It's a fan base that's gotten its heart broken numerous times, and it's kind of now a little bit apathetic. So I think that plays in, so even just on psychologically, it plays into the way in which they prepare for a game, the way in which they try to execute a game plan. And when you go on the road, you're not putting a show on for anybody's fans. I mean, you're there to do a job, and you're there to execute your game plan. And I think that there's a little bit of that showmanship aspect when they're at home ice that just takes away from their game.
Right.
And with a team that doesn't have as much talent as some of the Thornton era year teams, I mean, they can't really outskill you. You know what I mean? It's not going to be a team that's going to have a Pavel Datsyuk and Henrik Zetterberg, and do dipsy doodles. It's not a team built that way, right? This is a team that's built for hard forechecking, for using their big forwards down low, for slot play, and for getting the puck up really quickly from some talented offensive defensemen, or a talented offensive defenseman in this incarnation of the Sharks. But you know what I mean, right? It's
Right.
very meat and potatoes based. And when they get home, I think they forget about that.
Yeah, no, I think there's always that fact of wanting to show off, put on, like you said, a good show and everything. It just, sometimes it just happens to you over execute or attempt to over execute or get too fancy, and it comes into play, or maybe get too comfy at home. Who knows? With that, moving onward, we'll go to David Quinn here. I like how Kahkonen rebounded. He's getting back to the level we expect. I thought this was his best game of the year. He looked really comfortable. And yeah, I'll completely agree with everything that Quinn said there. With that, I mean, he looked really sharp tonight. Quinn has also said he hasn't made a decision in goal tomorrow. Does he go back to back with Kahkonen, especially with a shutout, or do you go to Aaron Dell? That's a big question. There is depending on how Kahkonen feels. So who knows?
I mean, he did so well tonight that I think he should be at least given the opportunity to start. I think that this is a goaltender that hasn't put consecutive games together yet. And going back to back and standing on your head for 2 nights in a row would be a long way in securing, a future spot for him, going forward, and securing or giving some sense of security for the Nets,
Right.
In the future. Right. So if he does start tomorrow, I really hope that he can replicate the win, and really can hope he can replicate the effort. Because again, I think this is that was one of the strongest games we've seen him play as a Shark.
Right.
And if he can build off of that in a back-to-back manner, I think it would go a long way.
Absolutely. And Hertl was thrilled for him to get the shutout, and he said, honestly, I feel so happy for him. He was great. That's kind of what he needs. Yeah, and you can feel it that, there's been that struggle, and the team knows it. They try to do whatever they can do, but a shutout again. I'll refer to Uncle Darren Stevens at Shark Stats on Twitter. Darren, thank you so much as always. The Sharks have shut out the Canadiens 5 times since 2013-14, the most in the NHL during that span. And that's just crazy to think. AJ earlier in our DMs, last time the Sharks lost in Montreal was March 21st, 2015. That's craziness to see, considering everything that Montreal has had over the years how they've gotten close a number of times, gone to conference finals, gone to,
them and Toronto. I mean, I feel like the record against Toronto is pretty darn good too.
Yeah, and there was that one time, although I think it snapped last season, beginning of the year, but I think Montreal had a tough time winning in San Jose up until last season. I think that went all the way back to 97, 98. But Darren Stevens also saying the Sharks are 22-6-2. Now I see why Marc-Edouard Vlasic wants to play Montreal 82 times. 22-6-2 versus Montreal since 1998-99, the best points percentage in the NHL during that period. And like we mentioned, the Sharks have won 7 straight at Bell Center in Montreal. I mean, just pure ownage on this team.
It's like it was like that.
Nice.
It was almost like the whole Buffalo Sabres thing in reverse, where we couldn't buy a win in Buffalo, and they seem to have our number on their home ice, and now I think it's gotten better, but it's just one of those kind of funky stats. You don't know why it happens, but there's just that couple of teams that you just have their number, and they don't really know how to shake it. Maybe it's the color teal. Maybe they're mesmerized by the teal all the time because they see it so infrequently. Who the hell knows? But it's good to see that the team plays with a lot of pride when they play in Montreal, which is the spiritual home of hockey, right? I think people will say the Mecca is Toronto, but I think a close. I personally, for the heritage aspect.
Well, it looks like I will be taking us out, and the lovely image of the Skype logo is where Puck Guy should be. But if you guys kept up and continued to follow along with us, I was just kind of mentioning that I was very proud of the Sharks for putting out such a good effort against Montreal. Again, the historical heart place of hockey, in my opinion, and honestly, just one of those revered places, kind of like a Fenway or a Wrigley. So with that being said, I think that we will end tonight's show with that. The San Jose Sharks defeat the Montreal Canadiens 4-0. Again, follow us along tomorrow for our coverage after the Toronto Maple Leaf game. We will be going live right after that. Again, it's another 4 p.m. Pacific start, so look for us around 6:30. In case you missed us or you want to check us out across all of the social media platforms and podcasting platforms. That, of course, being Apple Podcasts, the Google Play Store, the YouTube Rewind, SoundCloud, Spotify, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, Audacity. We have some really nice plugins with all of those podcasting apps, so you can check us out across those. And, of course, always check us out on the website, tealtownusa.com. Like, subscribe, and get notified for when we go live after every single Sharks game. So with that being said, for myself and for Puck Guy, keep it real, keep it teal, keep it real, Teal. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you after tomorrow's game against Toronto.